What in the world is really going on with our most respected spiritual leaders? One by one, names that have long stood as pillars in the gospel and faith community are now finding themselves in the middle of swirling controversy. First, it was Bishop T.D. Jakes stepping away under a cloud of speculation. Then David and Tam Lamone, whose once admired union came under public scrutiny. And now it's Bishop J. Drew Sheard, the head of the Church of God in Christ, whose name has found its way into the headlines, and this time it's not just outsiders speculating. It's his own daughter who has broken the silence, and what she said has stunned even the most loyal followers. This isn't the kind of story that fades into obscurity. This is about more than gossip. It's about leadership, family, and the unraveling of an image that was once pristine. For years, Bishop Sheard was seen as a towering spiritual force, not only because of his title, but because of the image he and his family projected, one of unity, strength, and unwavering faith. Married to gospel legend Kierra Sheard, he wasn't just a bishop, he was gospel royalty. But behind the sermons and worship songs, something seems to have cracked. And for those who were paying attention, the signs were there. At first, it was just murmurs on the internet. Random tweets, anonymous comments, shaky screen recordings from church events. Nothing concrete, just enough to raise an eyebrow. But as similar storms began surrounding other prominent gospel figures, people started connecting the dots. Noticed Bishop Sheard's sudden absences from major events, the church's lack of public engagement, and an unsettling silence from his usually vocal family. Something was off. And while most families might close ranks in moments like these, this time a crack appeared from the inside. Kierra Sheard, Bishop Sheard's daughter, is no stranger to the spotlight. As a celebrated gospel artist in her own right, she's always carried herself with grace, poise, and deep respect for the family legacy. That's why her sudden cryptic Instagram story sent shockwaves through the community. On a simple black background, she wrote, "Sometimes silence isn't strength. Sometimes it's survival." That was it. No names, no explanation. But the implications were loud and clear. Gospel fans, insiders, and bloggers immediately began speculating, was this about her father? About the Church of God in Christ? About secrets too heavy to name? And then came her next move, a moment that many say changed everything. During a women's empowerment panel, Kierra was asked about church leadership and transparency. She took a pause, and when she finally spoke, the room fell silent. She said, "I think our generation is tired of pretending. It's tired of performing perfection. And I'm not just talking about the congregation. I'm talking about leadership. People we love. People we grew up admiring. There are conversations happening in private that need to happen out loud, even if it costs us everything." She didn't say her father's name. She didn't have to. For a family like the Sheards, whose entire identity is built on church, tradition, and gospel fame, this kind of moment wasn't just brave, it was seismic. Suddenly, Kierra's post wasn't seen as a vague lament. It was a direct challenge to a culture that values silence over honesty. And while her words found applause among many younger believers who are fed up with hypocrisy and secrecy, they stirred discomfort among elders and traditionalists who felt she had stepped out of line. But it didn't stop there. Round the same time, her words went viral. Something strange began happening inside the church. Pastors affiliated with COGIC began resigning or quietly stepping down. No statements, no announcements. Just a slow exodus that suggested something was deeply wrong. Whispers began about loyalty pacts, about pressure to maintain a perfect image, and about leaders protecting each other no matter the cost. Suddenly, Bishop Sheard wasn't just a name in a rumor. He was a symbol of a broken system where power and silence walked hand in hand. Even more troubling were the leaks, private emails, text messages, insider recordings that painted a disturbing picture of internal politics, suppressed voices, and image-driven decisions made behind closed doors. Some insiders went as far as saying the church was no longer functioning as a spiritual body, but as a brand. One elder was quoted anonymously saying, "Decisions are being made based on optics, not righteousness." The internet lit up with speculation. Could it be true? Was this beloved church struggling beneath the weight of its own secrets? And right in the middle of it all was Kiki, now being pulled in every direction. Some sources claim that after her public statements, she was quietly advised by church elders to walk back her words or clarify her intentions. But she didn't. Instead, she went quiet again, but not out of fear. This time her silence felt defiant. It felt deliberate, as if she was saying, "I've said what needed to be said. Now watch." As more pieces started falling into place, it became harder to view this as just another scandal. Bishop T.D. Jake's retreat from ministry. The subtle, emotional unraveling seen in Tamila Mann's online posts. The tension in David Mann's public appearances, it was all beginning to form a pattern. Leaders once seen as invincible were either stepping back or falling silent, and none of them seemed able to explain exactly why. Was it personal crisis, internal conflict, or something far more systemic? The truth is, these controversies reveal something deeper. They point to a system that rewards appearances but punishes vulnerability. A structure that celebrates platforms but offers little space for the human behind them to break, confess, or seek help. One gospel blogger recently summed it up best. "We've built altars for our leaders, but we've never built them safe spaces to be human." It's a chilling thought that the very people we look up to are struggling in silence because the moment they show weakness, the support disappears. Across social media, young Christians have begun to speak up. They're demanding accountability, not perfection, but honesty. They're tired of being asked to defend systems they no longer trust. As one post put it, "We grew up loving Kagi, but we're not going to keep loving a lie." These aren't just words, they're a wake-up call. And for the Church of God in Christ and the gospel world at large, the time for polished PR statements may be over. What happens next remains uncertain. Bishop Sheard has yet to publicly address his daughter's comments or the growing unrest in his leadership. But the pressure is mounting. More and more members are beginning to quietly step away from the denomination because they've lost faith in God. But because they no longer trust the systems built around certain personalities. They're looking for a church that chooses healing over hiding, truth over tradition. And then there's Kiki. Her decision to speak may have put her at odds with tradition, but to many, she's become a symbol of what real faith looks like. Not perfect, not polished, but courageous. She may have opened a door she can't close, but in doing so, she also gave others permission to be honest, to question, to seek truth even when it's uncomfortable. Her voice has ignited a movement. Quiet one, but growing louder every day. This isn't just a moment, it's a shift. Across pulpits and pews, the old guard is being challenged, not out of rebellion, but out of a deep desire for something more real. For some, this will feel like a betrayal. But for others, it's a breath of fresh air, a chance to rebuild the church on foundations that are transparent, humble, and truly reflective of the gospel. What comes next for leaders like Bishop Sheard, for families like the Sheards, and for churches like COGIC will depend on how they respond. Will they lean into this season of accountability? Or will they retreat further into silence? One thing is certain, the curtain has been pulled back and the people are paying attention. In the end, this story isn't about tearing down leaders, it's about lifting up the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts before it heals.